going to record and broadcast. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. My name is Ben Lankin. I'm a member of the Blue Mountains International Hotel Management School Alumni Board. And to start with today, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which I'm broadcasting from today here in Sydney, the Gadigal people of the Aurora Nation, and pay my respect to their elders past, present, and emerging. I'm coming to you today live from mandatory hotel quarantine. So if I get a knock on the door and the nurses come in the background, that's what's going on. I'm also very, very happy to be joined by two others from Sydney as well. Two Tims. It's going to make it complicated, but bear with me. We've got Tim Thiel, Tim Ford, and all the way from Germany, Kat Zerenberg, joining us today to have a chat about career pivots and to hear some stories from Blue Mountains alumni about how they've transitioned their careers from their initial hotel education into careers in hospitality and then off into doing other things. We're really excited to hear their stories. A reminder that throughout the session today, if you want to put a question to one of my esteemed guests, you can do so, of course, by using the chat function, which is at the bottom of your screen. Feel free to pop a question in there and I'll be monitoring that. And if any questions come through, I'll put them to our panel to have a chat today. So welcome to all of the Blue Mountains alumni who are here. Welcome. This is our third alumni speakers series event this year so far, and the feedback has been really positive on those events we've had so far. And so welcome back to the alumni, to some faculty I know we have from the school here as well. Welcome current students. I think there's a few joining us today as well. And of course, anybody else who's managed to stumble across the link and has got here and going, what the hell is this all about? Well, strap yourselves in, folks, because we're going to have a great chat with three fantastic panelists, which I'll introduce now. First up is Tim Thiel. Tim graduated from BMIHMS in 2016 after completing part of his studies at La Roche in Spain. He started his career in hotels, first at TFE Hotels here in Australia, where he worked for about 3 years before transitioning to a customer success role in a HR tech startup called Go1, where he's now an account executive partnering with all types of businesses to grow their organizational capability, improve their onboarding efficiency, and reduce risk. Tim, welcome. That was a mouthful, but exciting stuff. We'll talk a little bit more about that as well. Second Tim we've got is Tim Ford. Tim Ford graduated in 2008, and it's a little bit of a reunion today because Tim Ford, Kat, and myself all graduated at the same time. Seems like a long time ago now. But soon after Tim graduated in 2008, he's turned his life around through the sport of triathlon. He lost over 50 kilos, became a competitive athlete, coach, and is now the CEO of MX Endurance. Now, if you're not a triathlete, you've probably never heard of that before, but MX Endurance is the world's premier endurance sports community, an online and offline community of triathletes and those participating in endurance sports, something I'm certainly not familiar with, but Tim will tell us a bit more about that. Previously, Tim had experience in social media management and e-commerce. He's got a commerce degree and also a law degree that he finished after completing his studies at Blue Mountains. And he's very passionate about battling obesity and harnessing the power of change that can be delivered through sport. So interesting career story there and life story there that we'll hear a little bit from Tim Ford, who's with us today. Tim, welcome. Thank you for joining us. And all the way from Germany, we've got Katharina, who has an interesting story as well. And what I just realized actually is that we, all four of us, have at one point in our careers worked for the same company. I just had this click. We all at some point worked for what is now called TFE Hotels at different times and different places. Anyway, it is a small world. Kat graduated from Blue Mountains 12 years ago and is now a media solutions consultant at Google in Germany. Where she's the interface between software engineers and client needs, managing projects from conception through to implementation. And in the past has had a broad experience in the hospitality and tourism space, running housekeeping for a hotel in Copenhagen that I actually ended up working at and doing a refurbishment at anyway. Small world. Kat is currently on maternity leave with her youngest of 3 children. And during her break, she's working part-time at the family business, helping with the day-to-day running and setup of the new business branch in sustainable and locally sourced home decor. There might be a plug coming later for that if you're interested in any sustainably and locally sourced home, well, local to Germany, not so local to Australia, but anyway. Kat, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Guten Morgen. It is the morning there in Germany, and we know it's tough with 3 young ones this time of the morning, so we appreciate you taking the time to be with us. Let's get stuck straight into it. And Kat, I might start with you. Maybe you could talk us through a little bit about how you ended up at Google, a few years after you graduated, and what that transition was like initially for you, moving from working in hospitality into that digital space.
Thanks, Ben. Welcome to everybody as well for joining us today. Really exciting to be part of this. My transition is a little bit different to many others, but let me first of all say, anybody can really end up where they want to. It was a long journey. I never thought I would be working for a tech company. I'm not very technical, to be honest. But what Google is always saying as well, everybody can learn, and it's not always about the short-term journey. It's about in the long run where you want to end up. So my journey started, as Ben already said, in Copenhagen, where I got a role as housekeeping manager, moved then into the event space, and then following the love of my life to London, where I also worked in restaurants. In the end, I didn't like the hours. I didn't like the every weekend, the crazy hours, the workload, and decided on a more 9-to-5 based tourism job. That was then in Ireland, where I worked for a couple of years. And again, there it was a lot of work. It was good fun, but I got the opportunity to work in business development for Google. And business development for most companies are very similar. So whether that's for a tech company or within hospitality, if the work ethic is right, you can go really far. So I managed to get a job there, and then moved into a more technical field later on. I was always really interested in marketing, but never really had the chance to really move into it earlier. And with that move in business development first, I then managed to get into a different role, working for YouTube, implementing the rich media ads, which was really great fun.
Interesting, Kat. And I'm going to come back to talk a little bit more about what the day in the life of Google is. I think those who've never worked at Google have these images of, bean bags and chocolate and drinks and lunch and food and nap pods and these.
That's all it is.
That is the reality, but we'll come back and talk about that in a second. Tim Ford, you also followed the love of your life across the other side of the world, which kind of kicked off your evolution, I would say. Tell us a little bit about that and how that all started and how you got to where you are today as the CEO of this company, MX Endurance.
Yeah, absolutely. Firstly, thanks, Ben, and thanks everybody for giving me the opportunity. I'm always really grateful to have the opportunity to talk to people. Finished 08. I got a graduate position with Marriott in Sydney. I went through the graduate program and ended up working in the e-commerce, sort of revenue e-commerce area. I did a lot of work with OTAs, really when they were just sort of starting to boom. And then I actually went and worked at ICMS for a little while and decided we were going to move to Norway, got married, moved to Norway for a couple of years. And while I'd been working at Marriott, a friend of mine asked if I wanted to do a triathlon. And at this point I was, I said this on a post the other day, I think the Chambers bread rolls and Nights of the Alex never did me too many favors, but I was like 120 something kilos. I stopped weighing myself when I hit 120 kilos. So I hate to think how big I actually got. And I did this triathlon and it was horrific. I was dead last. It was embarrassing, but it was incredible. I got this sense of achievement that I'd never really had before. It was so different to pursuing career and things like that. And went away and went, I want to do this properly. If I'm going to do something, I'm the sort of person, if I do it properly. So I started training and in the process, lost a heap of weight. And I came back to Australia and realized that operation sort of aspect of hospitality wasn't really compatible with the lifestyle that I wanted to live. I started working in social media marketing for Marriott again while I did my law degree. And then as I was getting towards the end of my law degree, again, this is such a cliche, but I was like, I don't know if I actually want to be a lawyer. It's there's a lot of stuff I'm not so fond about with legal practitioners, and there's a lot of things that I wanted to do real good, and I didn't think it was really possible. And literally, as I graduated, my now boss, Chris, who is, for people who don't know, he's like the Roger Federer of triathlon. If you're in the sport, he's a incredibly well-known figure that I was a member of his community. He came to me and said, "We'd like you to run this company for us." And I was like, yeah, like, okay, I have no idea what I'll be doing, but you know, I've always believed in, you sort of, if you get an opportunity, you make sure you take it and work out the rest later. And that was nearly 3 years ago. And since I took over, I've been traveling the world, putting on camps. Again, it's funny because while we're a sporting organization, we are there's a lot to it. Like, we're very, Kath said it, business development is the same in any industry. And I think what I've learned along the way is most industries you work in, there's a similarity across them. And in a lot of ways, we are a bit of a startup in a lot of ways. Like, we're doing a lot of tech stuff at the moment. We've been doing a lot of, we're trying to get some funding at the moment. It's hectic. It's hectic. No 2 days are ever the same. I travel the world. I worked in Canada last year. I worked in Hawaii last year. I worked in Singapore last year. I worked in New Zealand last year. I worked in, where did I finish? All over. I travel the world. So it's quite a weird year for me not to be traveling, but yeah, I still can't believe how I got here. So it's great. I'm really lucky.
Yeah, interesting, John. I remember talking to you back in the days when you were, going to start the law degree and you were going to be a lawyer, and how that, it's amazing how things change so quickly as life takes its twists and turns.
Yeah.
Tim Teal, you wouldn't guess it, but you're about 8 years younger than us, graduating in 2016. The world looked a little bit different then than it did for us. You had some experience overseas in hospitality, and then kicked off your career in Australia in hotels. You did that for about 3 years. What was the driving factor for you really in considering doing something different?
Yeah, so look, upon graduating in 2016 and joining TFE Hotels, fresh graduate, full of energy, really eager to get going. And all I wanted to do was, take over the world and become a prestigious hotel manager. Over a period of 3 years working with TFE, I grew incredibly as a person and into my early career days. And I suppose it was almost kind of, over probably several months of starting to understand a hotel's operations, what really goes into it, apart from kind of the surface level, what a guest would see. And it became quite clear to me that, I wanted to make impact, and I wanted to make change at scale, and I wanted to somewhat kind of push the world forward. And even down to the day, I feel that people's passions are constantly changing, and, trying to find your why is a journey, not just, an outcome that you find when you're 17, 18, when that's probably the most crucial time in your life. It was quite difficult for me to think that I'd be leaving hotels, but this incredible opportunity arose at Go One in a customer success manager role. And now that, it's a crazy term, right? And it sounds like it's, some unicorn style term, but in essence, you're talking to people, you're helping people utilize your products and services like you would in a hotel almost. But sure, it's going to be about technology and solutions for a business rather than an individual guest. And for me, that was, just a perfect fit. I'm very people-centered, people-oriented, and I was able to apply those skills from hospitality into customer success. And then after around a year of that, I managed to develop the knowledge and the skills in a completely different industry, in tech, where there's different words that you wouldn't understand until you've been in the industry. And then I suppose I gained enough confidence to move on to the other side of the conversation, which is solutioning for organizations to potentially utilize a product to make their learning easy.
Push the world forward. What a great catalyst to do something different and change. I think that's really interesting. Google certainly subscribe to that philosophy of wanting to push the world forward, don't they? Tell me, is the grass actually greener? Do the beanbags, the nap pods, the free food make a difference at all to your engagement at work, or is it all a bunch of mumbo jumbo?
I think Google's got a great philosophy. They do hire people that want to have an impact on the world. And don't we all, don't we all have a huge impact? And the beauty is you can, like, you really can. There's a lot of time for projects. You have 20% project work where you can choose your own project that either drives the business or helps locally, helps with charities. Like, you can really pick what you want to do. You just need to pitch it to your manager and they kind of sign off on it. So you have a lot of time on your hand where you can do something that is important to you, which I think always makes you want to work harder in the other areas as well. So they do ask a lot. They do push very hard. There's a lot of competitiveness, but there's also a lot of help. If you don't know how something works, somebody will always be there and say, look, I stay back. I'll show you how this works. I'll help you out with this project if you can't make a deadline. And certainly the perks with food and with the beanbags and the micro kitchens, it's a really nice workspace. You don't have to sit on your desk. You can work from wherever you want, really. You sometimes see people work from, they commute home, they sit in the tube and they still work, and they're on meetings, and it's fine. You really can. It makes it very flexible. And I think the main aspect is Google really does try to see you as an individual. You have your own needs. And as Tim Ford said earlier as well, it's not only about career, it's also about maybe a hobby or looking that you match your personal needs, whether that's through sport or whatever hobby it is that you have. I think it is really important to not only work yourself till there's nothing left, till the tank is empty, but to always make sure that there's a good work-life balance. And I think Google is a company that is trying to look after their staff. They offer free yoga, there's gyms in the offices. I think the only thing you need to be careful of that you don't stay all day 16 hours in the office, because there's so many perks there, and you can get 3 meals a day if you want to, but that you then also have your home life.
I think it's really interesting, right? Because you've all spoken about the transition, and nobody said, "Oh, I went to change to get paid more money." And I think I'm of the belief that people don't want to just work for a living. They want to work for a cause. They want to work for something greater than themselves, and they want to get out of bed every morning feeling excited to go to work, because when they get home, they're feeling this sense of fulfillment, like they've contributed something greater than themselves, right? And I think, Kat, that merging of your passions as well into your work is an important aspect. And I think that's something I'm hearing very strongly coming through from each of you, that the decision to make a change was not so much driven by extrinsic motivators, but more so about where can I make a difference, where can I make a contribution. So that's it's an interesting takeaway. Tim Ford, Kat just talked about that idea of balance and the importance of that. And, quite often people who have a career in hospitality, they often cite the reason of, the hours and it's too much and, I need to break. And, there is, well-documented stuff out there that talks about, the burnout that can be experienced with people working in those kind of environments for a long period of their career. You kind of spend a bit of time now in your career working with people to help them get that balance again. So I wonder whether there's some tips you could share from that work around what are some things people could do, particularly in this crazy world that we're in now, to help maintain a bit of that balance.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny because I started working from home literally when I started this job. We're a Singaporean-based company. I'm in Sydney, so I work from home, and I see so many of my friends, especially at the moment, have been going through the working from home problem and people struggling to switch off and things like that. And I'm like, I know this. Like, I went through this 3 years ago, because those boundaries become really, really difficult. And you're right. Like, a lot of the athletes I coach, as part of my job is I coach. I work with about 15 athletes, and it is often, as a coach, it's about holding people accountable. Why didn't you do this? You want to have X goal. You need to do the work. You haven't. Why? And often work is the thing that comes up. And some things that I like to firstly say to them is to remember that we work to live. We don't live to work. That's a lesson that I had to learn the hard way. And then it's a case of understanding that it's sort of what you touched on, I suppose, that you cannot really function properly professionally if you're not taking care of yourself personally. The analogy, if your cup's not full, you can't really, take care of other people. And it's so true. I say this to, I have some people who are very senior. One of my clients works in a very senior position for Woolworths, and it's so often saying, mate, I know you're stressed. That's why we work your program around the time you have available, and you actually find that you'll probably be better working if you've done the run or whatever. I say this to a lot of my things, like keeping a time journal. One of the things I had to do, and I probably learned this when I was studying my law degree, because law was unlike anything I've ever done before. Like, it was just crazy. Strict times about when I could do certain things, because I had to work, I had to study, I had to train. So it was about from this time to this time is study time, this time to this time is work time, this time to this time is training time, this time to this time is family time. They're really, really important things that people have to do. And the other idea as well, and I think it's probably a thing that a lot of us can understand, is that idea of, it's not what a lot of people are very, very driven, see things in black and white, and it's either a pass or a fail, or a success or a failure, and understanding that that's not the case when it comes to yourself. If you're trying to follow a diet, or you're trying to follow a run program, or you're trying to reach a performance goal, and you are going to stumble and you are going to fail. That doesn't mean that that's the end of it. Like, we're all human. We all have different things that, I try to eat very healthy. Sometimes I'll go have a Mac attack and have a quarter pounder and a couple of nuggies. It's not the end of the world. It's because I am human that I allow those things to happen. And it's the same with all aspects of our life. By allowing ourselves a bit of moderation and things that, you know, we can't always say no to, it gives you the ability to then go harder the rest of the time. I say to my athletes all the time, I'd rather give you guys something you can do 75%, 100% of the time rather than 100%, 50% of the time. I think that's a real principle that I try to get a lot of my athletes to understand. I think it's really applicable to so many of us.
What I'm hearing coming through there is the idea of structure. Building that structure into things is really, really important. And probably now is the time that we're all experiencing, you know, a complete absence of that structure. You know, the physical places we're in, the things we used to do, we can't do anymore, and all of that structure has fallen away. And so it's about how do you reinstill that structure? I mean, I'm on day 1 of 14 days of mandatory hotel isolation, and I've been thinking today about how do I bring some structure to these 14 days so I don't go crazy, and so that, you know, I can look after myself during this period where I can't leave these 4 walls. So, you know, structure, really important. Tim Teal, I wanted to ask you a little bit about, you know, there's some people potentially that are watching this today who are thinking about, you know, changing a career, doing something different, trying to figure out what that different thing might be. What advice would you have for somebody who's trying to figure out what's the next thing to try to do?
Yeah, look, it's incredibly difficult, and as Tim Ford pointed out, I think you know, you've got to find what you love doing and align somewhat. And I feel that, you know, when I look back into my kind of last days in the hotels to where I am now, you know, I come to work and I never thought I'd be the person to say it, but like, I love what I do, and I really do enjoy it. I enjoy the people that I work with, and I think yeah, again, it's really difficult to understand what you want to do because you don't know what you don't know. And for me, it was about researching, and, you know, some role came about, didn't know if I wanted to do it or not, but I Google it, understand it, you know, look at, you know, websites online to look at specific companies and how the employees review them, and find that entire balance. And for me, I think the most important thing is, you know, just taking that step, getting the foot in the door, and you know, sucking up, I suppose, a bit of your ego. You know, when I shifted across, I was an assistant hotel manager, so, you know, you've got that level of leadership. Whereas when you're shifting into another career in another field, you know, it's almost going to be, you know, you wouldn't be leading a team in an area where you wouldn't have that specific knowledge. So for me, it was almost kind of sucking up my pride, moving into another organization, into a role I wasn't familiar with. And sure, it's probably not going to be a pay reduction coming out of hotels. But for me, it's probably just, you know, just making that first step into a field that you think you're going to enjoy. And again, you could always go back to hotels. You're always going to be able to learn and grow and do new things. And Ben, I know, you know, ever since you were at a very young age, you're very passionate about hospitality, and it wouldn't surprise me one day if you went back, right? It's a constant journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me put this question, and I'll put this to all of you to answer. Did any of you have this sense of a bit of sunk cost feel around, I've got to make this shift in my career now. I've invested so much time and money and energy into taking this path, and now I've got to take another path. And was there a barrier around, God, throw away everything I've just done to move somewhere else?
I can probably go first. I know that my granddad, who paid for my Blue Mountains degree, wasn't exactly in love with the fact that I was going to do another degree. And he said, I spent how much on that hotel degree? And I can tell you the conversation that I had with him. I said, probably the things I learned at the hotel school are much more than how to serve a bottle of wine and how to make a bed and how to, you know, operate a hotel. It's the interpersonal things, the things I learned interacting in group assignments, the things I learned when I was in the SRC. All those sort of lessons that I learned, I think, have actually really equipped me to move on into other things. I never really worried about that personally because, as I said, I think that so much of what I did in hospitality, and again, I wasn't in operations that long. I did tend to work more in the marketing, e-commerce, digital marketing, social media side of things that are quite transferable. But all skills we get from hospitality are transferable. At its base layer, most jobs in the world are about customer service. And there's no better industry in the world to learn customer service and hospitality. And I think it doesn't matter, even if I was a lawyer, if I did go down that path, I would be a better lawyer because I would know how to deliver good customer service. And I think that's why I have been quite successful as a coach, because I consider customer service.
Kat, let me put that question to you. What are some of the things that you learnt from your experience in hotels and hospitality and your education that you're now using in Google that have helped you be successful there?
Maybe first of all, like, I love hospitality. I always did really love it. And my path was not chosen to move away from hospitality. It just kind of happened. I'm really grateful for it now. I'm really happy where I am, but it does not mean I did not enjoy working in hospitality or make really the active choice to move. The skills are transferable, whether that's the business degree or whether that's the service industry. It's all really transferable. You can use most of it. And as the Tims have already said, like, it's about compassion, it's about customer service, it's about understanding the person sitting opposite of you. It's about maybe even sometimes knowing what they want before they've said it. It's about maybe anticipating their needs, particularly if you are maybe meeting with a client who doesn't really want to tell you exactly what they want or what their problems are. And it's sometimes just kind of guessing or having a look at what is it they really need, and then selling them that or helping them achieve that without asking harsh questions or confusing them really in any way. I really think the business degree is there that we all have. And I know the hospitality industry is really difficult right now. It's difficult to get jobs. It's maybe difficult. A lot of people have lost their jobs. It's hard times. But there is other industries that are striving, and for instance, the pharma industry, there's maybe even jobs there. Like, most of you would have probably never considered that. But and as Tim Thiel said rightly, it's about the research. It's about looking into options. What are you passionate about? What are your goals, maybe long term, and then seeing how can you get there.
Tim Thiel, I think there's like there's a lesson in work ethic that you get in your time in hotels and hospitality. Would you agree that, I know the people that I work with in other sectors who came from hotels are always the ones they work harder? Is that your experience?
Yeah, 1,000,000%. And I think the people that can probably resonate with this the clearest are the people that are on the desk, the GSAs, the receptionists, because you've got this massive list that you need to do, and they're all high priority, and someone else walks up and you've got to just put that down, put on a smile, and give the attention to this individual. And the skills that I developed from that, looking back now, that I didn't know I was doing at the time, is things like setting expectation, right? Prioritization. And they seem like little skills, but now if I step into a room and there's expectations of me, I'm comfortable. I know what it's like to work under the pressure. I know the expectations of the hotel and me, and I bring that, I suppose, into the corporate world. And it's apples with apples, regardless of what they are expecting of you, whatever it may be. At the end of the day, you're dealing with people, right? And I think a beautiful thing that I used to, and I still think of, is when I was on that front desk, I feel that they was probably some of the most valuable lessons I learned. And I remember I was working at Adina Bondi, and I used to look at the door, and I used to see someone. I knew they were coming to check in, and I would look at them and go, I've got no idea who this person is. I don't know what they're staying, why they're staying, what the reason why it's going to be Adina Bondi. I don't know, anything about their lives. And I see them, and they walk up to the desk, and then we talk. And then I see them leaving the desk, waiting for the lifts. And it's just this weird little transition of this complete stranger into now someone I know, and I know how to speak to, and I know their drivers and what makes them tick. And I think for me that, that's just people, right? And you apply that in any conversation of your life. So for me, that was most important. Not sure if I answered that question directly though, Ben.
Lots of interesting things in there to unpack a little bit more. I think both Tims, I think you had more of a, and correct me if I get this wrong, but you've both had these moments in your life which were a bit of a realization moment. Tim Ford, you talk about the moment of that first triathlon, where it was really the sort of wake up moment for you in terms of, I've got to make some changes. Tim Thiel, and I hope you don't mind me sharing this story, you had a heart attack when you were 17. After being a bit of a ratbag teenager, which kind of reset things for you and set you on a different path. I'm keen to unpack that a little bit and tweeze out some of those interesting stories. So I might start with you, Tim. Maybe just take a couple of minutes. Tim Thiel. Might start with you, Tim Thiel. Maybe just take a couple of minutes to share your story of what happened to you when you were a teenager, and what that's meant for you in terms of how you see the world now versus how you did back then.
Sure. And I suppose, I'd like to kind of ask, how much into the story would you like me to go? 3-minute time slot?
3 minutes.
Sure. Okay. So at the age of 17, like Ben mentioned, I just finished high school and 2 weeks out of going to schoolies. And as a kid, I did a lot of swimming training. And this one day I actually had an ear infection and went to the local GP. And that GP realized that I had a bit of a sound in my heart. So I went to a cardiologist, and I had an underlying heart condition that I had known of, but the cardiologist mentioned that, hey, I'm probably not going to need anything until I'm around 60 or 70 years old. So I went on about my life. Anyway, back to when I was 17, I was in this little tango period between finishing HSC and starting university, and I was at a swimming pool. And again, I did a lot of swimming training. So I wanted to see how quick I could swim a lap. And it was a 25-meter lap. And I remember looking behind me at the clock, at the sign, waiting for the black marker to hit 0 so I could see how quick I'd go. And I dove into the water, swam freestyle as hard as I possibly could whilst holding my breath. And when I came up at the other end, I turned around and I noticed the marker was a good time, whatever, 12, 13 seconds, thought I still got it in me. But then my legs went completely funny. I couldn't feel them anymore. And I thought for a moment, my goodness, I'm going to pass out. And for me, all I was thinking was, I've got to get out of the water, because if I pass out in the water, I'm going to drown. So I remember getting my torso out of the water, where then everything went black. And from what I understand, my friend at the time called the lifeguards over. They performed CPR on me for 2.5, 3 minutes while the other lifeguard was getting the defibrillator. And then eventually we managed to resuscitate me. After about a 3 to 4 week process within hospital, I had some open heart surgery. So yes, I've got a great big zipper. And it was some very complex, controversial heart surgery that went on, where there was a lot of specialist cardiologists looking into the case and defining the best possible outcome and what the solution was going to be. And I suppose from that entire instance, it was a bit of a slap on the head of, I was a bit of as Ben Lankin said, I'm a bit of a rat bag teenager. And for me, it just kind of gave me some purpose and direction. And I feel I've still got that same energy that I've got, that I'm always looking, of things that I can do differently, things where I can contribute more. So I suppose it's a little bit around my story and what kind of gave me that little awakening.
Fascinating. And I think if you want to know more about Tim's story, you can find that somewhere online. And there's a great talk that Tim did on that. Maybe we'll post it in the link below in the YouTube or something.
I'm actually, something that's quite fascinating as well is I've been speaking with New South Wales Ambulance Service, and through conversations, it was talking via Go1, via learning, but they got this story out of me, and I don't know how, and they've kind of took it and ran with it. So I hear that I'm going to be doing a bit of a video with them and becoming their poster boy to bring down the rates of deaths, cardiac deaths in out of hospital situations, and of course all about AEDs and technology to empower citizens to ultimately save lives. And there's a lot of examples of 60, 70, 80-year-olds where that may not resonate with so many people. So I said that they can flog my story until I'm 80 and it's worthless.
Amazing, interesting. So Tim, you've obviously told your story many times over the years and in different forums. And what I think is great about your story is that it's a phenomenal one, but you've used it to help so many other people, and you've put that story to good work. And I guess your story provides hope and inspiration for people to think, I can make a change and I can do that. If he can do it, I can do it, kind of a thing. But I think as well, it's also coupled with that ability you've had to sustain that, right? Not only sustain that, but turn that into a career and the coaching, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Tell me, what do you wish you'd have said to your 120 kilo self back when you were, 21, 22? What do you wish you'd known then that you know now?
You can actually make money from doing sport if you just start now. Stop drinking, stop eating. Imagine how much better you'll be when you're older. It is a huge regret because I've moved into the sport and I got to a fairly competitive level. I've raced at world championships. I've won races and things like that, but I never quite got to the level where I could take a turn professional. And I'm always like, man, if I had just started this 3 or 4 years earlier, I could have. But it's hindsight's a wonderful thing. If I had my time again, I wouldn't change it, to be honest. I'm a big believer in everything that I did along the way got me to where I am. Those experiences, it's funny, but actually I think one of the things that makes me good at my job is the fact that I lived that journey, being overweight and going through all that stuff. And I mean, not to the same extent as Tim, but one of the big factors for me was I got pneumonia when I was training for that first triathlon and had to get the chest x-ray, and the x-ray came back and said I had an enlarged heart. For people who probably aware, that's a sign of heart disease. And I'm going, no, it's I'm an athlete, guys. Like, I'm training for a triathlon. Like, I'm a pretty serious athlete. They're like, your BMI would disagree with this. And that was definitely a real eye-opening moment. Like one of the things I speak a lot about is rock bottom moments. And that's definitely one of them. One of the other ones for me was the accepting the time where I was sorting through my clothes and had all these t-shirts that just literally could not fit me. And I made this decision, like, I guess I'm just never going to fit into them. And threw them out, and like, I guess I'm just going to be overweight for the rest of my life. This is my destiny, or because I felt like at that point I'd tried everything. And one of the really powerful things for me is, like, I did it, and I am. There is nothing exceptional about me. Like, I am the most average person on the planet, and the takeaway for me has been that if I can do it, literally anyone can. There is no reason. There is nothing special about me. I called my website My Extraordinary Ordinary Life because for that very reason. The thing that I'm probably most grateful though about with this whole thing is, like, losing weight it's very hard. It is a Rubik's Cube you're trying to solve while the thing's trying to solve itself, undo it, like the work you're doing. Like, everything's against you. Our bodies are designed to hold weight. We're survival creatures. It's not easy. That challenge of losing all the weight and keeping it off and putting a bit back on and losing, and it's given me a real perspective for the rest of my life. Like, it's so often now when I come to a situation like this seems impossible, and I go, well, you did this other thing that you thought was impossible, and you managed to work it out. And it just gives me a frame of reference for so much stuff now. It's really changed my approach. Like I said, I probably wouldn't have taken this job if I hadn't have gone through that journey, because again, it seemed impossible at the time. And it really does frame a lot of my decisions and a lot of my approaches to life now, is this idea that, things do get hard, but you can do it if you just persevere and work at it.
And what you're talking about there is, the advantages of adversity, right?
Yeah.
The idea that the experiences we have with adversity earlier in our lives equip us to be able to deal with other challenges in the future. And I think one of the things that I observe in the work I do professionally and also in the community is there seems to be, and this is just my non-expert opinion, a little bit of a erosion of resilience in the new generation of people joining the workforce in particular, where kids haven't experienced much adversity in their lives, and they come into the workforce for the first time, and there's a big adjustment in terms of, I've got a boss who's going to tell me what to do, and as opposed to a mother who, if I get a bad grade, I'll just complain to the teacher and get them to change.
Should have taken one of Mr. Cook's classes. That would have sorted them out.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting to hear these stories of, adversity being the things that set us up for our, ultimate success. Kat, I want to go to you now, because you've got a unique experience to us lads in that you've had some kids and you've got a family, and that is, that obviously changes your life, right? And it has an impact on your career. If you let it, I guess, what changed for you from a career perspective when you made that decision to have a family, and any lessons learned there?
So I have 3 kids, 4, 2, and 8 months, and like, they're wonderful, and we're really happy. We decided to start the family not too late and have, small differences between the ages if possible. And that worked quite well, but that also means that, I'm on a baby break right now. And I think sometimes that's quite hard. You can't do 40 hours anymore when you're on a baby break, and you need to make sure that you get back into a job. You need to make sure you find childcare, then they're sick. So I would say it's probably the hardest job I've ever done. Because you can't control it, you can't plan it. They do what they want to do, they're little individuals, which also makes it wonderful. Though there is a bit of something you can't predict in them, which is great. I think the biggest part is I struggled at the start really a lot. I wanted to go back to work after a year, and then I could only do part-time work, and I did really struggle because it's a mommy job, and these days that's not a job, right? I mean, people say, look, yeah, you have kids, but then you go back to work. It's not really appreciated that much. And I needed to get my head around it, that I probably work till I'm like 70. So it's okay to have a little career gap, and that's fine, because I want to have the kids, and they're wonderful. Like, they make us so happy. They make us laugh all day long. And, they also make us cry and scream all day long. It's great. It's a lot of emotions. But yeah, I've kind of decided as well, I find a few hobbies, things that make me happy, that fulfill me, but more that's like on the hobby basis. Like, I got bees, I became a beekeeper, and my husband and I started playing tennis when we do find a babysitter for the 3. So I find things that give me a little bit of me back, to be my own individual. And then, yeah, and then I go back probably next year, summer, maybe end of year next year. I don't know yet. But as I said, like that's okay. I'll probably work another 35 years anyway. So there's plenty of time to make more career, and that's okay. But I think everybody needs to make their peace with it. You know, you can't have it all. I have so many friends that are in their mid 30s or late 30s and they can't have kids because they waited really long. So I think for everybody that wants to have family, it's like you need to decide what you want to do. It's not, it's okay if you want to wait. It's okay if you say you don't want it. It's okay if you have kids early. It's all manageable, and it's all it all works with your career. You don't have to choose one or the other. You can have it all. You really can. It's just you might not be able to work full time and take care of the kids full time. Of course, you really need to set your priorities, plan maybe a bit, and look at the long-term goal, not the short-term.
So true, Kat. And, you know, I was going to try and avoid using the C word in this webinar because there's so many webinars about the C word, being COVID, of course. But I'm going to ask you on that point exactly. Do you think that the way we work and how it's evolving now in this COVID world might make it easier for that balance between career and family and actually breed more flexibility?
I think it will. My husband, he's been in home office since I think February. They kind of started really, really early to say, look, everybody that doesn't need to be on site. He works for a big biochemistry pharma company. So they kind of said, okay, everybody that's not production off campus. He works in a technical marketing position and he's doing home office, and whatever he can't do during the day, he has some flexibility to do night hours. Yeah, do it in the evening, maybe even do a couple hours on the weekend. But it's like Tim Ford said as well, it's about planning. You know, you have work time, you have family time. So for us, it's worked out really nicely. He sometimes takes some time in the afternoon and we do something together as a family. And then sometimes he might do an hour or two at nighttime. And for me, just a couple of days ago, our CEO actually posted that home office is now an option for Google. Google has always been quite strict on home office, more in Germany than in other countries because they've tried it and it didn't work. But now, obviously, with COVID, they've said, okay, till next year, August, definitely nobody comes into the offices unless they really have to, maximum 20%. And the rest works from home. And they've seen it's actually worked quite well. And a lot of people that have long commutes to work said it's fantastic. Instead of commuting 2 hours a day, I really have more time with my family, with my friends. I can do more hobbies. I can do sports. I can do whatever I want. And it's really increased work-life balance for most people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everyone's saying that. Tim Ford, how is your world changing as a result of COVID? I mean, your sport necessitates the need for people to travel to one place and be together to do a thing. That is difficult in this world. What has that meant for your business, but also for your life and doing those things that you enjoy? We mentioned earlier, travel.
Yeah, it's really taken the most, I'd say 95% of events around the world have been cancelled. It's funny, the roller coaster of emotions that we've gone through the last 6 months with my company have been, roller coaster is the right word, because, you know, with all events cancelling, it was about people going, well, I've got no race to train for, I'm just going to stop my coach and stuff like that. And then it was about us going, I mean, I said this to my boss day one, like I actually think, not just for my company, but I think all companies, that this is a real opportunity about pivoting and about looking at different ways of doing things and things like that. But for us, we just literally had to, again, we're a subscription model business. So it was about, you know, the first thing often when people are starting to look at cutting costs is canceling subscriptions. So it was about maximizing the value. So we just sort of came up with a bunch of really creative ways to do things. There's a cycling platform called Zwift, which is like a indoor cycling platform. We started to do a lot of events through Zwift. We started to do, like, I introduced a buddy program where we partnered up our members, because again, this is it's quite mentally challenging for a lot of people. And it was just that idea, we all have somebody to check in on and make sure that we're okay and things like that. And for me, it's been okay. While I like racing, you touched on it before when you were talking about routine, and it's something that I've been asked, because I still train 20 hours a week. I've been training 20 hours a week, but basically all year. And people are like, you've got no race. The training gives my life routine. It gives my structure. I structure my days around my training. I know that on Monday I go to the pool. I know that on Tuesday I do a long run and a swim. I know that on Wednesday, I know that stuff, and it fits. I fit my days around my training, and it's definitely helped to help me maintain routine, or give my life some certainty when everything else is so uncertain. So.
And Tim Teal, whilst a lot of companies are sort of, declining during COVID. Go One is probably the opposite, right? As organizations look to shift their learning online and do a lot of things more digitally. So you're probably experiencing a bit of an uplift as a result of the whole COVID thing. How's things changing in your world?
Yeah, look, coming from March when everything kind of really hit the news and we all realized we're in the middle of a pandemic, I think for any business, it's hard to try and predict and forecast what's going to happen. And even for a company like us, and we are, we've just kind of closed our Series C, so we are kind of within the startup, more of a scale up phase at the moment. But we didn't know what was happening. We make money from businesses making money and subscribing to our services. And if those businesses all of a sudden have to also turn into hibernation, they're looking at cutting costs, which then of course impact us. But then a couple of months in, once I suppose organizations had a bit of a strategy on how they were going to get through this phase, sure, the last 6 months has been quite fruitful for us and helping organizations being able to deliver online content. We were a content aggregator. We essentially pool different organizations that create online learning into a single library, but giving them the ability to provide training to their team, even without that face-to-face component. And sure, face-to-face learning complements online, but for us, it almost pushed the world, 5 years forward into what they need to do and how they can really build organizational capability remotely when we don't have the ability to have that on-the-job training. And I suppose, in a startup environment, for us, it's pretty exciting as well, because not only is the business growing, and sure, we've got some really good sales numbers coming through over the last couple of months comparing to quarters before. But for us, it's about generating and creating that impact. And Melbourne's been in lockdown for an incredibly long period of time now, and we're doing some pretty amazing work with the likes of Bupa by pushing out, some wellness pathways to the members of Bupa within the Melbourne region. So it's about creating impact as well and providing organisations with resources to support their team through this, where we may not necessarily be pushing for a sale, but just trying to, I suppose, create impact as well. We've got 4 pretty incredible founders, and when you're, I suppose, running a company like this, you've got to think about that overall vision and mission, and what we're really about.
Yeah, very interesting space, and a very interesting company to watch as well for anyone who's interested. Big investment from Microsoft, doing some pretty innovative stuff in that online learning space. I'm going to go to a couple of questions now from some of the people who have registered for the webinar today. The first one's from Luke Griffin. Luke, thank you for submitting your question. Extra points for you. Luke's question is, and I'll put this to anybody in the panel, is around how did you cope with those initial transitions when making that big career leap? Were you nervous and scared, and what are some strategies you employed to successfully make that transition? Anyone who wants to answer, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in quite quickly. And Ben, it's a message that you've always kind of taught me, is fake it till you make it. And, I was incredibly nervous about moving out of hotels, and Ben put it perfectly before around that opportunity cost, right? I was an assistant hotel manager. You've got that respect, that sense of leadership. And I felt that I'd worked for 3 years with TFE Hotels to build this personal brand in the industry. I've got a clear projection for my future. And I was so nervous that I was throwing that all away, and it was going to be the worst decision of my life. And I suppose when I came across to this new organization and people throwing weird terms at me, and I'm a bit lost, I think it's okay to be lost, and it's okay to just dumb stuff down. And now I ask people, can you explain that to me in baby terms? Stop using all this jargon, and there's so much business jargon and buzzwords around there. Let's just simplify it down, keep it simple, stupid. But yes, I was incredibly nervous. If there was words that were being thrown around that I didn't know, I just jot them down, give them a Google out of context so that I could understand, digest, and maybe even throw them in there once in a while. But again, it's just taking that leap of faith and listening to stories like this. Go on to websites, look at Glassdoor reviews, if you're interested in pivoting. But it's going to be nerve-wracking for anyone out there. But I think if you make the right decision, make the right choice, it's aligned with what you value in your life, then you might go into a role where you are incredibly, incredibly happy.
I also think, just touching on that as well, something that I've learned a lot, and I've probably gone through it myself. And I can't remember I always think Diane Kruger because she's an actress, but there's this phenomenon where they say that the less knowledge you have about something, the more certain you are that you know everything, and then the more you learn, the more you realize that actually you don't know everything. And I definitely realized pretty early on that it's better to admit when you don't know something and to say, look, I'm not sure about this or whatever, rather than go, yeah, I know this, and then to be caught out later. I think it takes a lot more strength as well to admit when you have a deficit in your knowledge that you need to fill. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, often you're in a position or you've made the change and people are aware, like nobody's just blindly plucking you going, I like the look of their face, they're going to get this job. Like they're aware of that you're probably pivoting, and therefore that if there is, like I think Kath said it, you know, Google's really good at, if you say you don't know something, they're happy to teach you. And I'd say that's actually applicable to most places. Like anywhere that pays you money to do a job wants you to be able to do the job well. So they're going to be understanding if you've come from one area into something completely different. They're going to, just don't take too long, I guess. Don't keep asking them the same question over and over and over. Like take on board the knowledge that people can give you. So.
Another question. Kat, jump in, go.
I was gonna say, my big jump from tourism or hospitality was from a tourism industry. It was a 100-staff company in Ireland. And I remember I got the job at Google and I was really excited about it and I thought it'd be a really good fit. And I remember the managing director of this company said, it's not for you. You're a small company girl, you're not gonna fit, you're gonna come back crawling in a few weeks. And I thought, like, I always really liked this guy, he was a great boss. And I kind of thought, how horrible, the decision has been made. And I was really excited and it really crushed my confidence. And I walked in there and I was also very, very, very nervous. I was like, oh my God, can I really cut it? Is this for me? Am I good enough? And I think, you know, it's exactly these things that everybody is good enough. You can do it if you want it. And if it's not for you, that's okay as well. Then you turn around, you find something else, you know, you stick it through as long as need be and you look for something else. But I always think, you know, if you have a good boss or you're with a good company that supports you and nurtures you and teaches you. And even if you decide to go, it says, okay, best of luck, you know, what can we do to walk apart with a good relationship.
Yeah, that relationship piece is so important, right? Another question from Krishna. Krishna is a recent graduate. Krishna, great. Thank you for your question. You're in the draw for a lucky door prize. Congratulations. Krishna's asking, what advice would you guys have for a graduate or a student who's looking at starting their career in hospitality and hotels now? What advice would you have for people who are just getting started and going into this crazy, ambiguous, volatile, uncertain world?
I can take it. I think uncertainty creates opportunity. Hospitality, and I don't know if it's 10,000 years since 3 of us graduated, but I always thought the hospitality had very clearly defined paths that you went into. You went into food and beverage, or you went into rooms division, or you went into housekeeping. Like there was these very clear paths. And I think that what you always find at the moment in a period like now where there is uncertainty, and this is something that my dad has told me, is that there might be this idea more of you create your own path a little bit. And hotels are going to have to adapt just like everybody else. Maybe it's a case of looking at different things. You know, you might never have considered working in housekeeping before, and suddenly, I mean, I don't know, I'm not in hospitality anymore, but maybe you're going to be in 5 years, if you start in housekeeping, managing a team of robots that cleans the rooms for you. I don't know. Things are changing so rapidly. And as I said, uncertainty creates opportunity. And I definitely go into whatever you're doing without necessarily that traditional approach to, well, I need to be a GSA and work. I don't think that's as relevant anymore, just because people are going to need to be flexible. So.
Tim Teal, Kat, anything to add to that very eloquent answer?
I think when I graduated, I was really keen to be, you know, in management roles really quickly and move my career. And I think it happens naturally. So as long as you go in there and be open and work hard and take opportunities where you can learn. Like I know we had these programs. I really wanted to get a start on the reservations. So they allowed me a couple of days a week to be on the reservations and have a look into it. And if you get these opportunities to try different areas, or you know, maybe do something, like Tim already said, that you didn't think you would be good at or enjoy, just be open.
And I think you know, you've already done, if it's Krishna that's asked the question, you've already done the right thing, right? You know, it's coming to forums like this, asking questions, networking, and you know, networking is a big fancy term, but it's just getting to know people in the industry. And if hospitality is what you're about, you know, why not be a little bit innovative and reach out to people in your network for coffee over Zoom or whatever it may be, and maybe try and add some value where you can, you know, share links, articles, and make a bit of a name for yourself. And you'll be, you know, if you do a couple of things every single day for a long period of time, you'll be really surprised at the results you get. And sure, you know, I suppose the world of sales is you're going to reach out to people, they're not going to reply. But if you reach out to 10 people and you get one good reply, reach out to 100 and you've got 10. You know, I suppose don't, you know, sit back down in your chair and think you've done a horrible thing and it's a ridiculous idea and no one's going to reach out to you. Just keep grinding away.
Yeah, good advice. Final question. This is another question from Luke Griffin. Double points, 2 questions. Good on you, Luke. A really good one to finish on, I think. And his questions is, have you guys found your calling? Is this thing about a calling real? Is it elusive? Can you ever get there? Final comments to finish us up on that. Have you found your calling?
I think I'm really happy in my career right now, but I'm sure my job will change 20 times. I think since I went on parental leave, my job has actually changed and I don't actually know what I'm doing right now when I go back. So, you know, and I might be really good at it, might not be, so they might move me again. I think a calling is at a time. I think our careers change so much in the span of our lives, and that's okay. And what your calling might be at 22 might not be your calling at 34. So, you know, I think as long as you do what makes you happy and work on that, you're on a good way.
I think you also got to look at, like, when you say calling, like, I don't think my calling is to be the boss of a triathlon company, but I'd say that my calling is to help encourage people to get active and understand the power of sport, and there's things like that. And in that sense, I definitely think I found my calling. I think I found my calling before I even got the job that I had, but when I was doing a lot of the things that I did that probably helped me get to where I am. I think Kath's absolutely right there. Like my job, I have a title, but my job is different every single day. I don't think I've ever had 2 of the same days ever. I've been doing this job for 3 years. Yeah, I don't think it's, I'd say, yeah, I've found my calling. I just don't think my calling is being the CEO of this organization. I think it is what I do. The core of what I do is my calling. So.
Yeah, I love that, Tim, and I think you're, you know, you're definitely in the space where you should be, and I resonate that with tremendously. And I feel that when I was in hotels, I was constantly asking that question to myself. I'd lay in bed each night and go, is this my calling? Is this what I want to do? Is this what I'm passionate about? I didn't quite know. And, you know, shifting to wherever I am now, whatever it stayed, is it the company? Is it the people I work with? Is it the engaging conversations I have each day? I don't know, but I find myself asking that question less. And by asking it less, I feel though that, yes, I have found my calling potentially, you know, but that calling and what I'm happy with might just be for now. And as Kat said, one day I'd like to be a parent. I'd like to be an active, engaging parent and be there with my kids. And that might mean I'm going to have a different balance in my life in 5-10 years time. So my calling now and my happiness now might not take me through my entire life. But, you know, it did take me a while to admit I've almost kind of suffocated that I wasn't super happy in hotels. And hospitality, and maybe my calling was elsewhere. I don't know what that is. I still don't really know, but I'm asking that question less of me now. That being said, when I was 18, 19, 20, all the way up until I had those final years in hotels, hospitality felt like my calling. You know, working in food and beverage, at the bar, giving people such an unreal time. I was super happy, and I wasn't laying in bed going, am I doing the right thing with my life? I loved it. And at that time, 100% hospitality was my calling.
I was getting a bit nervous then when I saw Benny dropped off. I thought, what's happening here? This is...
All right, it looks like he's joined on his telephone potentially.
Oh, God. Like, almost thought we were going to get through this without a technical hiccup, but, you know, of course, not to be...
Zoom bingo, Benny. Zoom bingo. There's always something happens. So.
Absolutely. Oh, we almost got through. We're very, very close. I'm sure every answer that you gave to that question about calling was fantastic and eloquent, and I'll leave it at that. We're coming up to the hour now and the end of what's been a really great chat, and I want to thank each of you for your time and for joining, and thank everyone for registering and coming along to today's session. We are running these sessions monthly, and you can get more information about the upcoming sessions by following our socials. That's the Blue Mountains Alumni socials, BMIHMS Alumni on LinkedIn and on Facebook. If you're not a member of those communities, jump on and do that. And you'll find out all about the upcoming events. Tim Teal, Tim Ford, Kat Zerenberg, last comments, opportunity to plug something if you'd like maybe it's your homewares business, maybe it's a social cause you're passionate about. What's something you want people to know about?
Maybe I'll start.
Go, Kat.
I'd say support local. Right now, more than ever in this time, if you can support local, I mean, I know a lot of people might not be in a job or short before graduating, but whatever local shops you can support, please try to do it. It really helps in this time of need, and I think it's a good thing to do.
Tim Ford.
Yeah, I just think I'm clearly pretty passionate about people maintaining life balance, and I guess I want to talk to the people out there who are now the future hotel managers. Is just because hospitality has this reputation as being so hard and so intense and demanding so much of us, I really think that we've seen that people who are happier in the other aspects of the life are more successful. So I implore you to be the change moving forward, and really try to help people understand that importance of a health-life balance in everything they do. So that's my request, please. Future stars of my past industry, but our industry.
Nice message. Thank you. Tim Teal, final word.
Look, everyone, I'll let you off the hook this time. I won't give you some elevator pitch that I've predefined before, but look, add me on LinkedIn if you'd like to have a conversation, reach out. More than happy to chat with each and every one of you.
Thank you, Tim Teal, Tim Ford, Kat Zerenberg. Appreciate your time and for sharing your insights. Again, follow us on Facebook and on LinkedIn for information about upcoming events. And until next time, stay safe, wash your hands, look after each other. See you soon.
Take care, team.
Bye.
Take care,
Thank you.
guys. Bye.